think finding a builder that you can work with is more important than anything else. And the longer you spend with that builder before construction, the better off you're going to be.
Hello and welcome to Level Up with Duayne Pearce. My dream is to improve the residential building industry for all involved. Throughout this podcast, we're going to be chatting to all types of industry experts to make sure that builders, tradies and clients all have a fantastic experience. We're here today. We got Matt from Radius Builders. Matt's
Hello.
a builder up here in Brisbane. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I'm Matt, Radius Builders. We're specialists in Brisbane on, we specialise in renovations, Queenslander and post-war homes. I've been in the industry for since about 2009. So what does that make it? Carry the one, about 12, 13 years, something like that. I came from a surveying university background. I finished school in 1990, right when we were in the middle of the recession we had to have. And getting building work around that time was tough. And I think my parents having their house renovated at the same time. We lived in Paddington, so typical tin and timber kind houses, and I just loved the idea of getting into that industry. And I hit that builder up for a job as I was finishing high school, and he sort of say, "Oh mate, give it a couple of years, we're in dire straits, yada yada yada." So I ended up going to uni instead, and all intentions to come back to building, and it took a while. I was married and had a newborn by the time I got back to the building game, and did an adult apprenticeship, and me being me, keen to just get things moving and get things happening, I did my Cert 3 and Cert 4 training together at the same time. Night school, newborn at home, wife on maternity leave. It was fun, but the ambition was there, the goal was there, and smashed it out. And I think a month after I got my carpentry license, I set up Radius Construction. And July 1 started trading as a freelance carpentry company.
Yeah, good on you.
Yeah.
So even with that background from surveying, and I'm sure you heard a few horror stories about builders and things, you still wanted to take the leap and get in the industry.
Yeah, someone told me when I was really young, find something you like doing and then find someone to pay you for it. Yep. So building was that for me. The passion was always there. And even, in the latter years when I was in the surveying industry, a lot of my work was in the building industry. You were doing set-outs on house sites and big estates. And, the dream was, it never dropped off. The dream was always there. So I'd ignored the horror stories about, the building industry because to me that's where I was going to be.
Yeah, man, I'm the same. I think like everyone, it doesn't matter where you go, or I think whatever career path you take, you're always going to have people that are telling you a horror story. And like one of my big things now is just like I run my own race. Like I don't care what other people are saying about the industry. I don't really care what other problems people are having. Like I make my business what it is. No one else can change that. And I think doing things like what you and I are doing here today, that's going to help elevate the industry, and talking to quality builders like yourself will just help lift the reputation. So, like, what are some of the challenges you've had? Like, because you've only been building for yourself. Obviously, you did the carpentry work and stuff, but like actually building homes. So, is it 3 years now? Yeah.
So, 2015, I converted from a carpentry license to a building license. So, It's been about 6 years operating as a builder.
Yeah.
So I had a licensed nominee. So like I employed a builder when I was a carpenter to work with me and nominate my company so we could start working as a building company. And he mentored me and took me through those final stages of training for my builder's license. I guess during that time we limited the amount of work we could take on. I wanted to protect him. And I wanted to not grow too quickly. I didn't want to get into trouble So I took it very conservatively, and we did fine. It was we managed to get work, and we worked through all the trials and tribulations of
Yeah,
doing
that's
that.
awesome. That's taking some initiative, mate, to get a nominee and start before you're even really there. Like, that's getting into it.
You find a way. So the alternative was that I go and work for a builder, but being married and with 2 kids at that point in time, and the flexibility that you have in your work days is very attractive when you work for yourself.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if I go and work as a site supervisor for 2 years for another builder, I'm going to lose that flexibility. So how do I keep the flexibility, keep the autonomy in my business, keep control of the situation? And the solution was to do it the other way around and employ the builder as the nominee and the site supervisor. I was the site supervisor. He was the nominee.
Yeah.
And it meant that I was working in my own business from the beginning.
Yeah, unreal. So, given your experience and what you're doing now, what sort of advice would you give for, like, what I know we all have it in the industry, like, and this week we've actually been doing a lot of talks at the Moreton Bay's Careers Week, but like, what advice would you give for the younger generation that are still at school, maybe years 8 to 12, that are not quite sure what they want to do? What advice could you give to them to be looking for an apprenticeship, and what are some of the, I guess, talents or background that you would look more favourable towards if a guy or girl was to approach you for an apprenticeship?
I think attitude is more important than skill. Skill can come.
Yeah.
Skill can be taught. Attitude, I think, is intrinsic. So that's what I look for when I employ people. So I guess my advice to anyone young that's coming into the industry is don't be worried about what skills you may not have at this point in time. That you're not going to be expected to be a gun carpenter in your first couple of years. But if you show initiative, if you show positivity and a good attitude to wanting to learn, then that will shine through, and prospective employers will see that, and they won't want to let you go.
Yeah, like one of probably the simplest thing is just show up, isn't it? Like I'm sure you have the same thing. Like you put on new kids, and they might show up for the first few days, and then they're late, and then they have days off. Like one of the best things you can, well, I for my business anyway. Like I'm the same. Like I think their attitude's the most important thing, but. And then like showing up, like if you show up and then put in the effort. Like so many young guys you get, they show up and then they drag their feet around all day and they got a shit attitude. So
yeah, I think you see them dragging their ass around site, and so you give them a little bit of slack, because sometimes there's a big site, big crew, and they might feel a little bit I don't know, shy, I guess, to not want to integrate straight away. So, it's easy to lean on a broom, or it's easy to sort of, skive off around the corner where no one's looking and things like that. But, I think you need to look like you want to be there.
Yeah.
Moving quickly and, sort of moving proactively, and the way you conduct yourself around the site, that's noticed. People look at that.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm not sure. And look, I guess everybody's different, but like when I was an apprentice, and even when I finished my apprenticeship and I had to work for other people before I obviously started my own business, like I think it was just obviously drilled into me as I was growing up. But like I've always just thought, like you work your bum off, and whatever you're told to do, you get it done as quickly as you can. And like looking back now at where I am and everything we're doing in the industry, I'm very results driven. Like I didn't realise that in the past, but if someone tells you to do something, don't think, and they say, oh, look, this is what you've got to do today, don't think that you've got 8 hours to do it. Like, get it done in 6 hours and prove to them that you've got initiative, and you get in, you get things done.
And then come and ask what else you can do.
Yeah, well, that's it. I guess that's a whole other thing. Like, there is guys that do get it done, but then they just sit around and waste their time instead of coming back saying, hey, I've done all that, what's next? Like,
and I think if, you have the young kids coming to ask you for solutions, but I tend to tell them to bring the solution with you. If you've got a problem, fine, come and ask me, what should I do here?
Yeah.
But maybe prepare a solution before you come over and say, right, I've got this problem. I was thinking of doing this to solve the problem. What do you think?
Yeah, that's
and
good
I
advice.
think that just gets them, rather than just this automatic, oh, what do I do now? I've got to go and ask someone.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you're not going to be able to ask someone. Sometimes you're just going to have to solve the problem on your own. And
Yeah.
as you know, this job is all about problem solving. It is, the product at the end of it is one thing, but
Yeah.
the journey to get that product at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's about problem solving.
Yeah, and I think like that it's a massive part of our job, and it's something that we're not really taught. And like one of my favourite sayings now is "There's no problems, only solutions," and I'd really try and drive that into the younger guys and the rest of my team as well on site. But it's funny because I just used to get so caught up in the problems, and I wouldn't just waste hours. I would waste days and weeks and sleepless nights just focusing on problems that were not getting me anywhere, my business anywhere, my client anywhere. Whereas when you flip that around and you start having that attitude, well, look, that's happened. Why has it happened? What can we do to fix it? Like, how are we going to get the best result? You can get out of that mindset in 5 minutes and be getting on with the rest of your day and moving on to the next problem.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And I think I find myself telling my teenage daughters at the moment, stop finding problems to every solution.
Yeah.
So you'd bring that attitude to work, and it's kind of, I guess it rubs off as well.
Yeah. So, like with the work that you do, Matt, like with the renovations and stuff, what, like obviously that type of work is huge at the moment. Like everyone's, no one's traveling. They're all putting money into their lifestyle,
That's
their house.
exactly right, yeah.
Like, what do you think some of the things are that clients out there or people out there that are thinking about renovating? Like, what's some tips and hints for those guys?
I guess trust your builder. I think finding a builder that you can work with is more important than anything else. And the longer you spend with that builder before construction, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
Because you really do build a rapport with your clients.
Yeah.
And it's best to start that as early as you possibly can. So, the question, do you go to a designer first or do you go to a builder first? Sometimes one is better than the other. Sometimes designer first is better than the builder. Sometimes builder first. But don't leave it too long a gap between.
Yeah.
I would say, within the first few weeks of when you're thinking about doing something, is start the search. And the moment you click with a builder, like both of you can feel it, and you know that it's going to be a journey that you take together, and that no problems, seem insurmountable. So, builders are great people to have at the table when you're having those early conversations. We've seen a lot of it before. We can bring solutions and advice, and the other stakeholders prefer it as well.
Especially with a reno. Like,
totally.
There's more, like, it's so important for a builder to be involved in the early stages of renovation work. Like, just finding, we have this pack process, paid as a consultant, that we do. For me, it's a no-brainer. Like, the industry is very old school, and again, I think it's an education thing, but building that relationship and that rapport with someone is huge. I think a lot of people maybe sort of don't understand just how much time they're going to be spending with a builder once they start building. Like, it's a full-on relationship.
Yeah, and on that paid as a consultant process, the pack process you mentioned, I find myself talking to the engineers and the certifiers a lot. Yeah. And you really are the client's representative in that space.
Yeah.
But you can speak the speak,
yeah,
talk the talk, speak the lingo, and you can often resolve a lot of the issues that you might see as a builder that you're going to have once you start building prior to getting there. So I guess builders intrinsically want to please the client. Like, we intrinsically want to do the best possible job we can.
Yeah.
Because A, we want to see the enjoyment that the client gets from the end result. B, we don't want any mistakes. We don't want any drama during the job as well. We want the job to go as smoothly as possible. So we're going to be emotionally invested in it just as much as the builder, as the client is.
Yeah.
So being there first, and the relief that I see on designers' faces when the builder is at the table as well, that they're not having to field a lot of the questions that the client has and potentially, make it up.
Yeah.
Trying to answer on behalf of the builder that, in their mind maybe wasn't going to come to the table for another 4, 6, 8 weeks. I just think it's the benefits to the client are huge.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's such a no-brainer. I grew up, like so many of my family members are tradies, and like I spent a lot of time on sites with my old man, which
Was he a builder as well?
He's a painter.
Right.
Had quite a reasonable painting business for a long time, and still doing some painting for us now. But I loved it. Like I never wanted to be anything else, but like being on job sites with him, like all I ever heard from the builders was bad things.
Right.
Like they were chasing clients for payments, and their client was doing this, their client was doing that, and then like I used to hear it from my old man, like lots of my uncles and that were tradies, and you'd be hearing these stories that that builder's not paying me, and he's this and he's that, and like I saw a lot of it when I started my apprenticeship. Like I worked for 2 guys during my apprenticeship, and I saw that all the struggles they had as well, and even seeing all that, I still just had this passion to get in the industry. And once I got into it, like my first 5 years as a builder, like I had quite a successful carpentry business, and then I got my builder's license, and which is what I always wanted to be. And within 5 years, I was just pulling my hair out. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why didn't I stay a carpenter? But obviously we've soldiered on, and we now run a really successful business. But it's I just think our industry is so old-fashioned, and I think builders, like so many builders, complain about the reputation that the industry's got and how people perceive us, but I think we've created it ourselves. Like I don't think a lot of the old-school builders really put any attention into or effort into improving the industry or changing the old-fashioned ways. And like I look back now to the problems I had in my first 5 to 7 years, and every single one of those problems is solved now by me being involved in the early stages, like understanding the design, understanding the discussions that the builders had with the client. I used to think it was okay to charge people variations. Like so many people when they're building are scared of variations, and the first few years I was running my building business, a variation was a pretty common thing. And like there was a lot of confrontation in regards to those, but it wasn't my fault. Like I'd been given a set of drawings, priced that set of drawings, and that's what I was building. But there was so many times things would come up where the client was telling me that this should be like that should be like that. I've had this conversation with the designer or architect, I'm like, so you're sort of stuck on site. The architect designer's left, they're gone, and you're having to solve all these issues. And then I used to feel like an arsehole. Like I had to charge variation to make money, but I dead set felt like an arsehole because I felt bad that I had to charge these clients for things that like they weren't my responsibility.
Well, you'll bring the bad news to them. Yeah,
and I'm sure we could rattle off hundreds of stories, but like the variations are gone now. Like we have weekly site meetings with our clients, and they're just a catch up. Like we're catching up to walk around the job because I've been at all those design meetings. I know what's being discussed. So do you have situations like that?
Yeah, and we run weekly site meetings as well, and it is a social catch up.
Yeah.
Before it's a client, builder catch up. Yes, we communicate. So I said I use WhatsApp a lot for communicating with my clients because when it's a husband-wife, quite often, you find out that they disagree on site and you don't really want them. You want them to resolve that before they come to site and talk to you about it. So we just link everyone into a WhatsApp chat and we have constant communication throughout the week. does open itself to sometimes some after hours communication, but sometimes that's necessary.
Yeah.
So everyone's on the same page by the time we get to the client site meetings, and it just it's great. It just makes it flow. It's, you know, we talk about issues that we had during the week that we may have resolved, and just confirm now that we're looking and pointing at it. Yeah, that's what we meant, and it just seems to move on from there. So. I think I'm just wondering about builder perception or clients' perception of builders, coming back to your point before. Do you think I've seen evidence from, friends and family that their perception of builders is that we're not intelligent. We're only builders because there was nothing else that we could have gone to do.
Well, yeah, that's why you're a tradie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's changing. I think that perception is changing, but I wonder if, you know, that older generation, that's the perception of builders. I remember a friend was getting ready to build, it was a while ago now, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and he said, I'm going to have to get my angry face on for when the builders start.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? They're just people, and they're here to do a good job. Why do you think that you're going to be picking fights?
Yeah.
And that was before they started, and he was just preparing himself mentally to have to argue with the builders. It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
I don't understand that perception. And the only thing I could think of is that, you know, there's that sort of ingrained dumb tradie kind of perception.
Yeah.
And, you know, the builders that I network with now, you know, with your assistance, is like, they are some of the smartest guys I've ever met. You know, they're the first ones I'd go to for advice on how to, you know, resolve issues or, you know, deal with a problem or come up with a solution for something. Like, it's just so inaccurate, those perceptions.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I try and wrap my head around this all the time, and I think so much of it comes back to price. Like, I think, like, one of the sort of feelings I have, like, so much of our industry is, I believe, led by the really big guys, like the guys that are doing hundreds or thousands of homes. And when they're doing those homes on those scales, obviously, and they build the same home. Like, I have this conversation quite regularly with some of our clients. Like, when you buy a project home, it could have been built a couple of hundred times. Like, they know every single nut and bolt piece of timber. They know exactly what the labour's taken to build that house. Mm-hmm. Every single home I've built for the last 15 years is completely different. Like, nowhere near. I've never built the same home twice. Mm-hmm. So trying to educate clients that when you sit with us and the designer, the architect, we get a set of drawings. When I get that set of drawings back, I have to work out how much that house is going to cost to build. So I'm working out for the first time how much labour, how much carpentry, how much plumbing, how much tiling, how much concreting, like every single component. And like, as you'd know, like, there's literally hundreds of components that it takes to build a house. And like, we're really good now in our business of tracking the data, because that's all we've really got. Like, we haven't built that house before. So we've got to go back and look at similar houses. Like, might have been a similar size or a similar design, and try and get some data behind why we're pricing things. And I think part of it is come from that. Like, people, like, we see all this marketing on television for all these project type homes, and we can build for this square meterage rate, and we can do this and we can do that. And then they come to guys like you and me they're doing one-off homes, and you tell them what it's possibly going to be, and they're like, holy hell, like, how can that be so different? And like, we've just done some stuff on it lately on our social media stuff, where, like, we did a video on one of our jobs, a big renovation, and the job was the frame had just been finished, a really large renovation. Like, overall the job's about $1.3 million, but the frame was finished and the roof was going on, but my carpentry on that job up till that point was about $64,000, and it was a very detailed job. And I was giving an example, like, you build a project home, like, say you go to one of the bigger guys in these master planned estates, and you choose an off the house plan, I did this work for, and I'm using rates from 15 odd years ago. Like I did a lot of this work. We'd go in and we'd smash out the frames, and I was explaining that I used to get, and this is 15, 16 years ago, I used to get $14,400, and that was for frame, install the windows, install the bathtub, windows and external windows and doors, cladding and soffites, and fit out.
Right.
Like every bit of carpentry on the job was $14,400. And so that's the difference.
And just cookie cut.
Yeah, just in and out.
Yep.
Like we would, like there'd be 5 or 6 of us, and we'd I built up quite a big carpentry gang, and like I remember we would have project builders that would give us a street. Like we would have 10 houses side by side, and like the frame would turn up. Like this is the other big difference. Like the frame would turn up pre-made on a truck. Like you would have that frame. Like you would flick the slab out, stand the walls, have it bolted, braced, ready for trusses in a day.
Yeah.
So like we're talking literally a couple of $1,000s compared to a custom home, which generally the carpentry, like, and this is only one component of the job. The carpentry can quite often be sort of 6 to 8% of the overall job cost.
Yeah, well, when you work out the magic formula for forecasting your labour component of a renovation, let me know, please. That is the hardest part. So this house we're working on at the moment is an extension on both sides. So an old hardwood hand-pitched roof and extending both sides with trusses integrating in both sides. And one side was a fairly clean integration, but the other side, because of how the rooms and the roof was shaped, it was quite a difficult integration. And, you know, you think, okay, same house, we're coming in from both sides, going to be pretty much the same. You know, the pitch changed from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. I mean, yeah, okay, they're hand-pitched and they're probably just scratching around for materials. It was probably built, you know, mid-50s, so who knows what material supply was like, you know, sort of coming out of the war and all those things. But they were just making do with what they had there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to run this ceiling line through the entire house. We can't afford, you know, a 20 mil, 30 mil difference in our ribbon plates on both sides because that's how the roofs were. You know, we're trying to integrate into these old roofs. Yeah. So it took us days. I mean, at the end of the day, we were commended by our inspector on how great a job we did to do that. But, you know, that's not a one-day job to lay these trusses up and form them and integrate them into the old roofs. Yeah. So, yes, when you explain it to the client after the fact, this is what we had to do. But like you say, when you're sitting at a set of plans and you're looking at it, it's like, yeah, that's right. We'll just integrate that, no dramas. It's not until you start peeling things off and you have a bit of a look and you run a laser over it and you realise, you know, you're dealing with 30 mil drop over, you know, maybe 4 metres in from one room to another. Then you realise the effort that you've got to go in. And of course, you know, I don't know what you're like, but if I see something that's not right, I've got to fix it. Yeah. So then we're tying down, we're strapping down.
In the older part of the house. Yeah,
in the older stuff.
We're the same, mate.
You know, so, and more often than not, you just, unless you do it, you can't sleep at night. You're just like, right, boys, just get in and put a couple of batten screws in there, throw a bit of gal strapping over that one. Yeah. You know, all of those things. We just have to do it. Yeah, and it like, again, it's just one of those things. And look, obviously it's up to us to educate the public and clients and that on what actually goes on and what happens. And like, you can, like, it's not hard on a renovation. Like we only make what's left at the end. Like we sit down, like that is so true. And sort of going back a little bit, what I was sort of touching on before, there's this perception that builders make lots of money, I think, but when the reality is that most builders don't make money. Like they struggle to make ends meet. They're constantly chasing their tail. But I think the reason there's that perception there because we make lots of money is because the end value of what we do is worth a lot of money. So that's right. So like you build a $500,000 house. Like I hate this. Like everyone throws around this 10% figure. Like anyone that's working on 10% is going broke. Yeah, well, they've folded already. But to the public, they think, shit, he's making 10%. He's making 50 grand out of one job. Whereas, like, you can have the business like the clothes shop down the road that might have a
300% markup on on a dress, the finished price of the dress might only be $90 or $200, but
that margin is massive.
Yeah, the margin's massive, but if they put in the effort and they grow their business and they turned over $500,000, they are making a shitload more money than what a builder's making. But and I think that's where a lot of it probably comes from. Like the end dollar value is so high that they just perceive that builders are making all this money, but we get given a flat set of drawings and maybe a few 3Ds that, like we were saying, like we've got to sit down, work out every nut and bolt, piece of timber, labour. Like labour's the hardest one, I think. I don't know about yourself, but
incredibly hard.
And then we're exactly the same as you. Like you get on a renovation, and the amount of times that, and we do a lot of site investigation work to nail things down, but until you start stripping a home apart, like you say, there might be a ceiling that's slightly out, and it might not be much to the client, that it might be 15 mil. But if you're doing a renovation and the whole new ceiling's got to be the same plane, it's a lot of work to re-level the ceiling of an entire, even if it's just a big living room. Like you're constantly just eating into these your materials allowances, your labour allowances. And the clients don't know this. I don't expect them to know this, but
you're constantly managing your overs and unders. Just think, okay, well, I've gone over here.
It's a constant juggling act.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Every day of the week. Like we're not like the supermarket down the road that just has a product on the shelf and it's got its margin on, and they know they sell the thing every day of the week. Like it's a big deal, and so I sort of come back to. I think the project builders are the supermarket. Like you go in, you buy a house off the plan. They built the same house hundreds of times. They know exactly what it's going to cost, and you go and throw it on a block of land down the road. So,
I find the challenge in when you're talking to clients about that, and I guess they're coming from that perception that and they watch the TV shows and they see it just all being punched out and all those things. And, the old day perception of the builder, like, whoa, that's going to cost you. When they want to change, they want something. It's like, oh, darling, that's going to cost you. You don't want that. But you don't also want to come across as being negative when you are saying to them, listen, these things are likely to come up. We're likely to have ceiling height issues. We're likely to have... And clients, I guess, wouldn't fully appreciate that we're always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, as well as the other trades that are going to benefit or be challenged by the work we do. So if we run and leave the ceilings out of, at a level, fine. But then when you decide you want to run tiles to the ceiling, then I'm dealing with the tiler. So I'm going to try to fix that issue now so I don't have the arguments or the variation from the tiler when he's got to, change the way he's doing something because something's not running level. So I find that challenging when I'm saying to the client, these are all the potential pitfalls. It's my experience that's coming through and explaining to that. But what they're hearing is opportunity for more money, opportunity for more money. You're gouging us. You're telling us this now because you're going to hit us up later on. It's like, no. Like, completely different. We're trying to resolve the issues before we get to them, rather than looking for opportunity to charge you more.
And I think it comes back to what we touched on before. Like it's building that relationship.
Yeah.
Like because at the end of the day, for us to stay in business, we've got to do the right thing by people. If we were charging exorbitant fees and too many variations and ripping people off, like that's going to show. Like it's like I'm a big believer in like you can take 10 years to build your reputation, your brand up, and it can be ruined overnight by one job. So
one Google review.
Yeah. So it's in like I'm sure you're the same. Like on all of our jobs, like we go out of our way to make sure that we look after the client. We exceed their expectations. We like my big thing. We have 3 things in our business which I drum into my team, and like that is the first one is near enough's not good enough. Like I'm like you. Like if I come in on site and look around and something's not quite right, like I'll make it. I'll make them do it again. I have no issues with that. The second one's quality. Like everything on our jobs has to be about the quality. It's got to be installed as per manufacturer specifications. It's got to be the right fit for purpose, like all that type of stuff. And then the third one is the project is king. Like everybody, myself, my team, my subbies, my suppliers, like we've all got to be on the same page, and the project being king means that we're all working towards making sure that we deliver the client the best possible product we can. And like if we're not doing that and we're charging too much, we're ripping people off. We're not going to last long.
No.
So I think that trust thing, like for anyone that's thinking about building or renovating, like take your time. Don't rush in. Like have you got some advice for people that are sitting on the fence, wanting to build or renovate, not quite sure what to do, where to look?
Oh, I would say I often tell people, especially when they start to hint that they're probably price focused, then I say to them, explain to them that the trust and the relationship and it is more important about building that rapport with your builder. But I fully advise them, interview your builders, but don't interview them for the price. Interview them for the feel, the rapport, the relationship, the personality. Go through your due diligence to find your builder, but don't make price the reason you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, I'm not the cheapest builder, but I don't want to be either.
Yeah.
And I'll be the most comprehensive builder you speak to.
Yeah.
And my quote will show that and will show you what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I won't be the cheapest. And I just think that there's other things to consider if you're thinking of renovating a building. Yes, you've got a budget to work with, but you've also got relationships to work with as well. And I think that's more important.
But when you say, because we're the same, like people quite often, like we get feedback that, we wouldn't come to you, you're too expensive. But I'm not expensive. I just run a good business and I do things properly. And I don't, like we don't come back to fix things. We do things to code. We like one of my pet hates, and that probably shouldn't talk about too much, but like project homes, and again, this is from first-hand experience. Like I built them for a long time. They're designed for a purpose and a lifespan, and it's another like we've been talking about throughout this. It's chalk and cheese. Like you got a project home that is built for people to get into the market. Like it's built for a price point, but it's designed to the absolute bare minimum. Like everything, like I this is something I really want to help educate people on, because another big passion of mine is sustainability. Like I got my own opinions and all that on that sort of stuff, but I think we're taking advantage of the earth. I think the waste from our industry is enormous, and it's one reason that I've really gotten more into the renovation work and talking people into saving their homes and letting us work with them, because I can't stand seeing a whole home go into the back of a truck and be put in a hole in the ground. And yet we have, like, the whole world's going down this sustainability, help the environment path, and yet we have hundreds of thousands of homes being built, like definitely in Australia, but I would say around the world, that are built to a price point that are bare minimum across the board. So the slab, the engineering, the framework, the joinery, like everything is bare minimum to have a 20 to 30 year lifespan. Like how is that sustainable when you've literally got entire houses being thrown in the ground? So to me, it's more than just a house. Like you've got all those, like the forests, you've got all the materials, the manufacturing, the labor, the transport, the like all that stuff that has been done to build that product to then 20, 30, 40 years later just be put in a hole in the ground. Whereas like I love getting out in the country. My a lot of my family are up out sort of in the bush, and I can drive past houses now that like my great grandfather worked on 140 years ago, and they're still strong as anything, still standing there.
Yeah, all the old farmhouses.
Yeah,
they're all still standing.
So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of pushing more of that stuff. So what's your sort of take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of clients ask me to recycle materials that that we might take off site.
Yeah.
And we're all for that. I tell them it might take a little bit more time to prep them or, reuse or repurpose.
Yeah.
But it's an important part of what they want to do. And I'm all for it. I've had clients ask me before position on sustainability, and we do as much as we can in that space, that if we're taking waste off site, that we're using services that are recycling that waste or repurposing it somehow. I've got a guy that is, does a lot of rubbish removal, that is all about stripping out the copper, stripping out all of the metals, and he takes them to the recycling stations. He takes them to places that they know are going to be repurposed for, as opposed to just filling up a 6-metre bin and, watching it just drive away at the end of the week and not really knowing where it's all going.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that a lot lately, that approach is more common now in what is happening with the materials that we're taking off site.
Yeah, because you see like so many, especially the bigger companies, like they call them, they're building sustainable homes. They throw some wall sacking on, they put a bit of insulation here and there, throw a few solar panels on the roof, and all of a sudden they're sustainable. But I'm it's definitely a passion of mine, recycling the old weatherboards and VJs and all those types of things. But even like on the smaller jobs, doing the hand removal of the old hardwood timber, and like we've got a pretty big stack of it out from the shed, like just repurpose it here and there wherever we can. But so what would you, I guess we're probably going to get close to wrapping it up. What's what would be your 3 tips to start with for a young person wanting to get in to the industry? Like you touched on attitude before, but if you, for all the young people out there or people that think about apprenticeship, just 3 quick things that you would what they should do to get an apprenticeship, what they should show people.
Don't ask your mum to call. You pick up the phone and make the introduction.
Yeah.
Show that keen attitude. Be prepared to work hard. It's not an easy industry to work in. It's a tough gig, but if you're prepared to put the hard yards in, the rewards are certainly there.
Yeah.
And I think network, use your resources as best as you possibly can. And you learn that as you move through life and you get older anyway. Yeah. That you don't have to be doing this alone, and just call on the resources that you have.
Yep. And just a couple more with so someone out there, maybe a first home buyer, or someone that's maybe considering doing a build or a reno for the first time. What sort of tips could you give those guys?
Use your builder. Don't think that you can do it yourself. That's a lot of first homeowners do think. I would, I guess, push the early engagement. Yeah. Push the early engagement on, and just start to build relationships with your builders as early as you possibly can.
Yep, awesome, mate. Well, thanks very much for coming along, mate. It's been good having a chat, and
been my pleasure.
Hopefully everyone gets a lot out of it. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.